record on the
file. So shall I start now?
Please.
Good evening, dignitaries, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. I am Shanti Rose, your Sergeant at Arms. First of all, let me wish all of you a very happy and safe New Year. It is my pleasure to welcome each one of you to the 127th meeting of ICC Advanced Toastmasters Club. Today is segment 6 from the series of meetings titled Ignite Possibilities. Before we proceed, let me announce a few ground rules to follow. Since this is an online meeting, I request each one of you to mute your audio while the speakers are presenting their speeches. In order to ensure the smooth conduct of this meeting, kindly refrain from speaking on taboo topics, religion, politics, and sex in your speeches. Please switch off your mobile phone or keep it on silent mode during the meeting. It is best to have your video on while the speaker is speaking. However, if this affects the overall quality of the meeting, the host may request you to switch off the video. Be mindful of your background at home when your video is on. Sit in a quiet place with zero disturbance and background noise. At your home, you know where the washrooms are located. Please feel free to use them. Please note that the meeting etiquette and the agenda have been forwarded to the attendees of this meeting. Let me read out Toastmasters Club mission. We provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Friends, now it is time to welcome our president to open this meeting. He is an ardent Toastmaster, a leader par excellence, popularly known as Toastmasters brand ambassador. He works as senior IT manager at DHL Express Qatar and lives with his wife and 2 lovely daughters. His mantra in life is to make a difference by delivering excellence, by doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. Friends, help me welcome our dynamic president, distinguished Toastmaster, Christopher Almeida, with a loud round of applause. Over to you, President.
Thank you, Shanti, for that lovely introduction. District leaders, club members, and guests who have joined us around the world, a very good evening and Happy New Year 2021. Wishing you all good health, wealth, and peace. Live life to fullest is my mantra. With this, I now declare meeting number 127 open. Welcome to ICC Advanced Toastmasters Club. ICC stands for International Competent Communicator. This club boasts of 18 distinguished Toastmasters, DTM as we call it, the highest number of DTMs in any club. As the saying goes, you're never fully dressed without a smile. So to those of you who have turned off your camera, I request you to please turn on your camera so we can have an engaging session. This is not a webinar, it's a workshop. So let's actively participate. Today is the 6th segment of our Ignite Possibility series, brainchild of distinguished Toastmaster M.I. Farid, who is the godfather of ICC Advanced Toastmasters Club. And so I'm very excited and looking forward to have another amazing leader deliver a fantastic session. It will be our club's endeavor to get an internationally acclaimed speaker each month for our meeting, the first Saturday of every month. Hence, please reserve the first Saturday for ICC Advanced Toastmasters Club. These meetings are open to all professionals worldwide so that maximum people can derive benefit from these talks. Our first session started in August, and now we are in January, starting the new year with a big bang. To move ahead, we have a convener for today's meeting. She is the backbone of ICC Advanced Toastmasters Club. She serves as Vice President Education. Today is the club Distinguished Club program. The place that it stands, it's all because of her perseverance and hard work. She's a qualified lawyer and currently doing fellowship in international arbitration. She's been married and has one GB, one girl and one boy. Her interest lies in public speaking, coaching Cavaliers in public speaking. She's a voracious reader and a writer. She joined Toastmasters fraternity in 2015, been past president of a thriving club in Qatar, Indian Club, served as district leader for Area 7, currently serving as Assistant Program Quality Director of Division G. She has won various accolades. To name few, all-rounder, outstanding area director. She has had a clinical performance last term as the highest number of educational awards in a term by any member out of 2,000 members in District 116. She was the only recipient to win this recognition. A very pragmatic personality, meticulous persistence is her middle name. Ladies and gentlemen, put your sanitized hands together to welcome our convener, Alarmal Mangai, Distinguished Toastmaster Alarmal Mangai. The screen is all yours.
Thank you, President. That was energizing introduction I've ever had in my life. Thank you so much. Distinguished dignitaries, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. Good evening and a happy new year to all. It's my honor and privilege to be the convener for this most look forward to 6th edition of Ignite Possibility. This is a unique keynote series run by ICC Advanced Toastmasters Club. I extend a warm welcome to one and all present here. Let me quickly run through the schedule of today's program. First, we will have the keynote speech by our honorable guest speaker. In this session today, one of you will have an opportunity to be the volunteer of his demo session. If you feel you're the one facing lots of challenges and want to know how your belief system influences you, please nominate yourself for the case study of our guest speaker by way of your private chat confirmation to our Q&A moderator, Toastmaster Nalini Mathur. While listening to the speech, you may have some queries or doubts to be cleared with our speaker. Feel free to send them to our, again, Q&A moderator, Toastmaster Nalini Mathur, by way of your private chat. Kindly send in your questions as and when they arise and don't wait until the completion of the session. I repeat, you are free to send your questions as and when they arise and don't wait until the completion of speech. Please keep your questions short, crisp, pertinent, and to the point. Moving on to the program today. Friends, when you focus on problems, you see more problems. When you focus on possibilities, you see opportunities. That's our motto at Ignite Possibilities, to make you explore more of your possibilities. We have been doing it diligently through our world-class renowned speakers and motivators. Tonight, we have amongst us an amazing personality, a coach, trainer, and a healer who's committed to transform your lives. He calls himself a friend committed to the fulfillment of your vision. He is an Access Consciousness Facilitator, Certified Mediator, Semantic Transformation Processor, who has transformed thousands and thousands of individuals and organizations. You see, Sukhdeepak Malwai. Sukhdeepak Malwai ji has been conducting transformational training across the globe for more than 3 decades. He has trained and coached more than 20,000 people, over 150 organizations across 17 countries. He has been trained in MBTI and EFT. He has international certifications from Moda USA and SDI UK, certified assessor, certified by Edexcel UK. He is a certified mediator who conducts program and selling with integrity, a Reiki Grandmaster, Avatar Master, Theta Healer, Pranic Healer, Vipassana Mediator, Access Consciousness Facilitator, NLP Trainer, Semantic Transformational Processor, has been conducting studies on consciousness for more than 15 years, and conducts program to raise your SQ, that is spiritual quotient, and increase intuition. Here helps individuals and organizations to get both peak performance and opportunity. A lot more in the list. We'll share in the precious time of listening to him. So friends, help me welcome with all your virtual cheers, the very versatile veteran coach and renowned healer, Sukhdeepak Malwai ji. Sukhdeepak Malwai ji, the screen's all yours.
All right, good evening. Good evening, everybody, and a very, very happy new year. And you know something, that 35 years from now, if I was asked to stand in front of a group of wonderful, magnificent, extraordinary human beings like you, I would be absolutely petrified. Okay? So I was one of those shy sales managers, you know, excellent in one-to-one, person who had read something like 600 books by the time I was 27 years old. I was one of those know-it-alls, you understand? But I was a guy who was pretending to be confident. I was pretending to be happy. I was pretending that I know everything, you know, but when I looked at my life, it wasn't a life that I loved. And I was certainly not living my life powerfully. And then one day something happened. And at the end of 3 days, major transformation happened in my life. You know, an introvert got converted into an extrovert. Someone who couldn't speak in front of 4 people started speaking in front of 300 people. You know, somebody who was so timid and shy suddenly became courageous enough to chuck his multinational company job and go and join that organization. And then I worked for 12 to 14 years with that organization, training myself, you know. Now the question is, what is it that happened to me? So I've chosen this topic about beliefs. And there is a reason why I've chosen it. Because 30-something in the year 1982, when I got transformed, what actually got transformed was something deep inside me, very closely held beliefs inside me, they changed. And when those beliefs changed, the way I looked at the world changed. And the way I looked at myself changed. The way I looked at my relationships changed. The world was the same, people were the same, everything was the same, but Sukhdeepak was not the same because his strongly held beliefs had changed. So some of the things that I discovered in my journey, I'd like to share with you so that you understand that there is a, you know, let me digress a little bit. I read a book called You Will See It If You Believe It. You understand? Now, there is a belief strongly held by a lot of people saying that, you know, my reality is caused by my experiences and my beliefs are caused by my experiences. And what I discovered was it was not actually my experiences causing my beliefs. It was my beliefs that were causing my experiences. And I discovered that the reality that we create around us, you know, the reality which is created by the sum total of the beliefs that we have made up. That reality is the world that we live in. That reality is what causes us to attract certain things in our life. That reality is something which causes us to, repel certain things that we want. So it's a very funny thing that you want something, So let me give you an example. When my father was a colonel in the army, okay, very strict father he was. He loved me a lot. And I would look at other children and I'd say, look, they're so free and they're having fun with their fathers. Why is it that I cannot be comfortable and free with my father? Because the moment I would go in front of him, I would become absolutely petrified, stiff. And later, when I attended that program I was talking about, I remembered that there was this reality that was there in my mind. You've got to stand like a gentleman, you've got to sit like a gentleman, you need to laugh like a gentleman. All this is playing in the background. So the moment I go into his presence, I am standing like a gentleman. All right. Later on in life, when I was working for a multinational company, Mr. Kumarachandran, who used to be my boss, he used to tell me, Sukhdeepak, it's a pain to sit with you and drink. So we used to have these cocktail parties once in a while. And I used to be so stiff, I was so much holding myself back. I shouldn't get drunk. I should not misbehave. I should not say anything inappropriate. Now we are supposed to be in a party having fun, right? But I'm more conscious about what will people think about me. All right. I shouldn't do something stupid. I should speak exactly the way I'm supposed to speak. I should not make a mistake. Now, where is all that stuff coming from? When I go back and I, look at my childhood, till the time maybe I was 4 to 5 years old, I was free like a bird. I mean, I was having fun. I used to enjoy playing with other children. Okay, and somewhere after the age of 5 to 6, maybe, I started withdrawing from the world. Why? I started becoming a loner. Why? Because certain beliefs started getting planted in my head. And I wasn't even consciously aware of them. All right, so I come from a family, my father was a Sardarji with a turban and all, which he shed later on. And my mother was a Malayali Christian. So you can imagine we were in a family where we spoke only in English in those days. My mom learned to speak in Hindi when I was, 21 years old. Okay, so there I was. And I still remember, always told, Sukhdeepak, you've got to be a good boy. See, this is how your beliefs are getting planted in your head. Yeah, I still remember in Trivandrum, there was this party in our house and I was getting ready for it, enjoying. When there's a party in the house and a big one, everybody's attention is on the party and not on you. So as a child, you are free to do what you feel like. So I was there with my air gun, roaming around, shooting things. And my father used to give me a limited supply of those pellets which go into the air gun. You remember those? They used to be very expensive those days. Now, when those used to run out, I used to go to the kitchen and get that dal. There is a black kali dal, and I used to use that to shoot. So I went into the kitchen, and there was this cook who had come from the army mess, and he was making food over there. And we didn't have any gas those days. There was this logs, sticks burning, and smoky kitchen. I go in there, and this little lord and master, behaving like his father. Hey, dal deo, give me the dal. He said, nahi dunga. I said, how dare you talk to me like that? If you don't give it to me, I will beat you. And that fellow started laughing at me, and I completely got wild, pulled out one of those sticks from the fire, started hitting him with it. Can you imagine this little fellow, just about 6, 7 years old, trying to hit a 6 foot tall Jawan? That fellow is laughing at me even more. Now my dad heard the commotion and he came over there and he saw what was happening. He gave me one tight slap. He says, you bloody idiot! The blot on the name of the Balwai Khandan. How dare you behave like that? And my mother, as usual, trying to shelter me, she comes and holds me and says, oh, you're my good boy. You're my good boy. Good boys don't get angry. And can you imagine that after that day, 2 things happened, right? There was a belief planted in my head that my father doesn't love me anymore. Okay? And that's how I lived my life till the age of 40. My father doesn't love me anymore. And I should never get angry. So can you imagine it took me about 20 years to allow myself to generate anger. I cannot get angry. If you get angry, people will not like you. If they don't like you, they'll not respect you. If they don't respect you, they will hate you. Okay? So these beliefs planted in your head, you know. And another belief that got planted in my head was if somebody gets angry with you, that means they hate you. They don't love you anymore. Can you see the kind of reality you're creating? If somebody laughs at you, so, you know, we were in Secunderabad, then we got transferred to Amritsar. Now here is this English-speaking guy, right? In Secunderabad, something happens. My lovely teacher who used to like me a lot, she got replaced by a temporary replacement who was like a Durga, you know, and she shouted at me one day. So I came home crying and my mom says, oh, Sukhdeepak is such a shy guy. You know, he's such a sensitive child. And to make matters worse, I fell ill. It had nothing to do with the shouting. I just fell ill. And my mom's telling my dad, you know, Kittu is such a shy boy and sensitive guy. He got sick because the teacher scolded him. So when we went to the new school, what do you think happened? Parents went and met the teacher. And they said, look, our son is a very sensitive child. You should not scold him. Now you go and tell a class teacher that you should not scold our child. What do you think she's going to do? Right? And in those days, you know, if your English was good, then you were the teacher's pet. And if you were the teacher's pet, then other children certainly did not like you. So you can imagine in Punjab, where everybody speaks in Punjabi, they were making fun of me and say, hey, aa gaya Angrez, you know. So I thought, oh, if you're different from other people, nobody will like you and accept you. Another belief got planted in my head. You know, later in life, I discovered if you are extraordinary and you're different, you get marks for that. But here is a guy who believes if you are different and if you're extraordinary, it's dangerous. So try and be like everybody else. Are you beginning to see what is the impact of these beliefs in our life? And many of them were there. Believe me, now I can tell you about it. But I didn't know that I was carrying these things around. I just was being a certain kind of person in my life. There was no reason for me to be a shy guy. There was no reason for me to be an introvert. You get it? When I discovered this, oh, it's only a belief. Did I look at that belief as a belief? No, I didn't. For me, the so-called belief was the truth. I am like that. People are dangerous. People will take advantage of you if they can. You know, after the program, I still remember, I go to the office, my lift man is smiling at me. The security guard is smiling at me. In the lunch break, you know, we used to have lunch together. And my colleague who used to sit and have lunch with me every day, he comes and says, oh, hi, Sukhdeepak, how are you? I said, I'm fine. So what happened to you, man? I said, nothing. Look, Sukhdeepak, I've been working with you for 7 years in this organization. I have never seen you smile in the office. That's when I realized I was all right outside the office. Okay, but in the office, I got to be, you know, why? Because somewhere my father's voice was there in my head, you know, you bloody joker, behave yourself, be serious. Otherwise, nobody will respect you. So I wasn't being myself, right? And we are not talking about behaving inappropriately. We are talking about being free. Can you imagine now, all of you here, very, very distinguished speakers, do you realize or do you notice that when you are, what shall I say, not being yourself, yeah, there is a kind of staginess in the way that you speak, right? It doesn't come across naturally. Why? Because you're not being natural. And who says we cannot be natural? I mean, who says we cannot be effective if we are natural? What I've discovered is that if I can be me, and if I can be authentic in my life, then I am going to be powerful and I'm going to be effective. And who's the enemy? Somewhere buried deep inside. See, I also want to share with you another one. See, I had this recurring pattern which would take place in my life. Okay? I mean, there are 2-3 patterns I want to share with you so you understand how beliefs impact you. Okay, so one of the patterns was that there would be great love and affection that I would get from people. And then suddenly something would happen, right? And that affection would turn into indifference or even hatred. And for the life of me, I couldn't find out. So somewhere in the year 2006, I was attending a program by one of the only PhDs in NLP in the world, Father Dick Magoo. He was a 72-year-old guy that time. Okay. And there was this Tools of the Spirit program that I was doing. And suddenly in that program, I discovered that there was this song that was playing in my head, and a song which I listened to in 1957. I was born in 53. So how old do you think I was? Right? I didn't even understand Hindi at that time. My father used to listen to this song, you know. Humne to jab kaliyan maangi, kaanton ka haar mila. Right? जाने वो कैसे लोग थे जिनको प्यार से प्यार मिला. So what it means is, you know, who are those, you know, whenever I asked for flowers, I got thorns. So it was like almost, you know, like a programming. I still remember whenever there used to be a festival or a celebration in the family, I would get this feeling of apprehension and foreboding, you understand? I would be like, something bad is going to happen. And it usually did. And you know why that was there? Because I discovered during one of the programs another belief that I had. Because when we were small and growing up, during a festival, always, you know, there would be a blow up. My father would get angry and shout at somebody or the other. So if he couldn't shout at my mom, I being the eldest, I would get it. So it was there in my mind, something bad is going to happen. And if you remember these old Hindi movies that we used to watch, you know, really old ones in the 50s and 60s, okay? There'll be a song and they're dancing and romancing and suddenly, bang, they're caught, you know. So I still remember later on in life when I'm listening to this song on a movie, you know, I'm already beginning to feel that now something bad is going to happen. And that's exactly what was happening in life too. Now, can you imagine you carrying a belief that, you know, if somebody shouts at you, that means they don't love you anymore. All right. So here I got married at the age of 21 to my childhood sweetheart. And we had our first child after 1 year promptly. All right. And then something happened. And my lady love got very angry with me and she yelled at me, you know. Now, she doesn't love me. All right. I made a mistake of marrying this woman who doesn't love me. Now, what do you think happened to my marriage then? For 13 years, we were battling merrily ever after. Why? Because my belief made me give up on that relationship, saying that she doesn't love me. She hates me now. She thinks she made a mistake marrying me. So what do you think would have happened after 13 years? I don't have to get into that one. Yeah? So obviously, this guy likes to punish himself. So after a couple of years, he decides to get married. Because who's going to look after his children? Right? And promptly, lo and behold, after 2.5 years, there's a big fight in the house. The lady gets mad at you and shouts at you. And I say, oh, shit. You know, oh, shoot. I made a mistake. She hates me too. And thank God, that's the time when I discovered that, Sukhdeepak, it is your belief that if somebody gets angry with you, they don't love you anymore. And thank God I got that belief. You know, I discovered, hey, that's your belief. In fact, so I was talking to Anjali. I told her, why do you speak to me like that? She says, because I care for you a hell of a lot. You are my husband. I cannot allow you to, you know, make a mistake in life. So I get agitated when you don't listen to me. So I yell at you because I love you. You know, busted a belief. Thank God I got out of that belief. Because I'm sorry to say that, you know, right from the day we were born, we are being influenced and indoctrinated, first of all, by all the storybooks that we read, and they lived happily ever after. So the belief is that once you're married, you should live happily, you know. Unhappiness has no place in your life. Hello, if you live with someone, there is going to be ups and downs, right? But what is my belief saying? Right? If there is a down means now it's not okay anymore. So life that could be wonderful and satisfying, okay, doesn't remain wonderful and satisfying anymore. Why? Because you start believing, oh, this is a big mistake. This is not the way it's supposed to be. Like God came and told us what it's supposed to be? No, we made it up. So belief is something which we believe to be true. In fact, we live our whole life believing that it's true. Like how many beliefs we have? I am shy. I'm not good enough. You know, people don't like me. People who look at me in this manner, they are not good people. People who look at me like this, oh, that's a slimy smile. But God came and told you that. Have you noticed that how much of judging is going on? And where is the judging going on? Let me just quickly show you this. All right. If somebody can indicate to me if they are able to see this little wheel. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Now, if you look at this circle here, beliefs, judgments, and depending on your judgment, you will have actions or non-actions. Okay, either you'll do something or you will decide to stop doing something. Okay. For example, if I had a judgment call, oh, she doesn't love me anymore. So what will I do? Oh, now I need to withdraw. I don't have to shower so much affection on a person who doesn't love me anymore. Right? So I stop making the effort. When I stop making the effort, what's the result? My belief is always strengthened by it. Let me give you another example. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I don't remember how old, I was in class 3. So my Colonel Saab father suddenly decided to take interest in my studies. And thank God he taught me only maths. All right. Now these army officers, no, they have time only in the evening. And at least my dad had time only in the evening. And in the evening, he would have his 1 or 2 pegs. And after that, his behavior was rather uncertain. Okay, 1 minute he'll be like, my beloved son, meri aankhon ka noor, right? And the next minute he'll say, you bloody idiot, you've got no brain. So I was very scared around him because you never know what he's going to do. You know, if somebody's behavior is consistently angry, you can handle that. If the behavior is consistently loving, you can handle that also, right? But if the guy is blowing hot and cold all the time, at least I was not able to handle it. So this man decides to teach me the tables. You know, 2 1s are 2. So every day I'm doing that. Okay. Now one day, unfortunately, I forgot this 9 9s. And here is my dear father encouraging me. Come on, Sudeepak, you know it. You are so intelligent. You know the answer. Yesterday you told me. Now he thinks he's encouraging me because that's what he uses to encourage his jawans or whatever, right? Here is this guy, you know, so frightened, you know, and I completely froze. Brain theory tells you, you know, when you yell at somebody, his rational mind is switched off. So that's what was happening to me. Now, instead of cooling down and telling me nicely, he gives me one dhap and he says, you bloody idiot, you have no brain. You're as stupid as your mother. You can never learn maths. You can never learn maths. And you are as stupid as your mother. So what is getting planted in my brain? All right. Judgment. Belief is, I can never learn maths. All right. I'm stupid. Now, when I'm sitting in the classroom and the maths teacher was explaining the maths problem or something, I am not even listening because my mind is saying, you can never learn maths, you know. So that's a non-action. And you know what the result is? I would never solve the maths problem. And when I did not solve the maths problem, what is the result? My belief, see, you can never learn maths. So that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now the guy who was coming first in his class till then started coming 10th after that because of a belief that gets planted in his head. And the very interesting thing is that you keep living with that belief, right? And then you're living with the pretense, that it's okay, I'm trying hard. And you are actually trying hard. But the underlying belief is, what's the use of trying? You will never be able to get it anyway. So my story of my life was, how do I escape from maths? Okay, so when I came to 9th, I was in Chennai, in Adyar Kendriya Vidyalaya, I remember. We had to choose, So I said, I will choose science, because you have to do special mathematics. And that also only in the 9th. After that, no more maths. I said, wonderful. But you know what? The bad news was, later on I discovered, in physics and chemistry also, you've got these formulas. So if anything looks like a formula, means it's maths. And I'll never be able to get it. Can you see how, I would have chosen to be an engineer and I got pushed to be a doctor, right? Because my father said I have to be a doctor. So all my life, never experiencing any freedom. All right. Is it freedom that you are living according to the beliefs that have been indoctrinated in you? A belief system that says that you always have to get the approval of these people who are there in your life. Because if they don't approve, that means they don't love you, and you can't survive without love. It's true, you cannot survive without love, because love is an energy which we need. And love is an energy which we experienced when we were little children, when our mother, held us in her arms. That was probably the only time there was complete, open, energy being showered upon you, the energy of love. After that, it became transactional. If you are a good boy, I will love you. If you get high marks, I will love you. Otherwise, I will withdraw my love. So it's been a race to get that love and approval from these people. Why? Because of beliefs that got planted in my head. And ladies and gentlemen, you're all very, very distinguished, and I'll repeat, wonderful and magnificent and extraordinary human beings. Even I was. But if somebody had told me that, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have said, oh, me, you're talking about me. I am wonderful. You understand? Because in my belief system, in all the judgments that I was passing on myself, I wasn't good enough. But trying to prove to the world what a great guy I am. And I only gave it up somewhere, when did I give it up? Somewhere in the 90s. After my little son was born, the third one. I just gave it up. I said, what's the point? It's just your belief system that says that you need to, win the approval of people and you need to impress people. And that's the time when I gave up all pretense, That's the time I learned that I can focus on what I do best, and that's making a difference in people's lives. There also beliefs will come in, no? So there has to be a measure, How are you making a difference in people's life? Have you noticed that we will even have a measure which is, I'll come to measures in a little while, a comparative measure. You understand? Your younger brother, youngest fellow, started his career when you were already a senior officer, and look, he's become director of a company and you are only a trainer. Hello. I am very successful in what I chose to do. He's successful in what he chose to do. Am I going to allow somebody's comparison to make me look down on myself? Thank God I'd had a breakthrough, so I didn't. But just see, we have a tendency to judge everybody, isn't it? And who do we judge most of all? We judge ourselves. Right? You tell me, when you have to judge something, there has to be some kind of a yardstick, right? What is your basis of judgment? So there has to be something that you're going to compare it with, isn't it? If you say good and bad, as compared to what? Oh, somebody is good as compared to what? So you will always find that the yardstick that we have for judging ourselves or anybody else is our own belief system. And these beliefs are not the truth. You understand? Somebody might judge me completely differently depending on his belief system or her belief system. So how arrogant we are as human beings that we made up some beliefs which are not the truth, but we think they are the truth, and we use those beliefs as the yardstick to judge other people and to judge ourselves, and then decide how we should behave with them or not. Am I getting through to you guys? This particular point is important to know. Understand? Because what I have discovered is that these beliefs are like a prison. Okay? See, I am in the possibility generation business. I believe that enterprising people, they see possibilities where ordinary people see roadblocks and obstacles. Now, the biggest roadblock is our own beliefs. Because beliefs that we have, they limit our perception of possibilities. Because if we're going to compare everything, based on my beliefs about myself and the world, will I ever be able to see possibilities outside that? It's a question to be with. Does it make sense what I'm saying? That's one of the reasons why I'm very, very passionate about this belief business. Look, there's nothing right or wrong. But we live in a world where we always look at everything right and wrong, good and bad. That's all we are doing. Based on what? Based on our beliefs, which are not even the truth. Something that we choose. And it's very interesting, we will always gather around us people who believe the same as what we believe, so that we can say, see, everybody says the same thing, right? Let's talk about beliefs. When this COVID thing happened, there was doom and gloom all around, and the people said, oh my God, business is finished, this and that and the other, right? There were some people who refused to believe that, right? They actually said, hello, this is an opportunity. It's not a breakdown, it's an opportunity. So this big company, I don't want to name it, they had, loans of more than 2,000 crores and they were being prosecuted internationally. They've managed to wipe out the entire loan during the COVID period. So how did they do that? When the COVID started, my own profession, I'm a trainer who does face-to-face trainings. I've always avoided doing this, online stuff. 7 years back, I was approached by a company, hey, Subdeepak, why don't you do virtual trainings? We will give you the studio, we will give you the material, everything. I said, no. The truth was, I was not comfortable with this medium. But what was I saying to them? Face-to-face is better. I still say face-to-face is better. But times are changing. COVID forced this upon me. So I said, all right, now here is an opportunity to do something which you never did before. So I launched a series of programs. Another very interesting thing happened, that I realized that somewhere, in the last 10, 15 years, I had gone away from my purpose in life. And one of the things I've learned in life is the moment you deviate from the purpose of your existence, then suffering begins to start happening in your life. So, capital M became more important than my mission in life or my purpose in life. And everything started getting measured by, oh, what's your billing? How many numbers are you getting now? And thank God to Mr. COVID, I was reminded that, hey, Subdeepak, you are in this business because you believe in a world that works for everybody. That's your mission, right? Money will follow. Stop obsessing about money. And it's quite interesting. My savings actually went up because we were spending less. Okay. Now, my billing should have gone down, but it didn't go down substantially. So it busted another belief in my mind. That if you open your mind and start looking for possibilities, then there are possibilities galore. But who's stopping those possibilities to be visible in my life? My own belief system. And the problem with these beliefs is that they so insidiously creep up upon you, you see. you don't even know that they are creeping up upon you. I'm remembering this story somebody told me about this frog, you know. They were doing some experiments. They took this frog and put him in boiling water and he jumped out, tuck. And then they took another frog and they put him in normal water and they very slowly started heating it, right? And he got so used to it. At some point, the water was boiling and he died in it, not realizing the water is getting hotter and hotter. And that's how these beliefs creep up upon us. Now, age and experience is a wonderful thing. You know, Fareed, you and I have age and experience on our side. But another, you know, the pitfall also is that we are picking up more and more, you know, these beliefs insidiously. You know, we are picking up these, I know, I know, I know. And the more of these I knows are getting into our head, it is kind of limiting possibility. So I have this battle and I've been fighting it very well, I'm happy to say. And I've made it a rule, I will attend one new program every year, spend 10 days, you know, and a good amount of money. The latest among them has been this access consciousness stuff that I've started working on. So if you look at this long list that Mangai was reading out, it's only because I do not want this arrogance of ignorance to come inside me. So when I say arrogance of ignorance, it means ignorance which comes when you become fixed in your beliefs. Arrogance that comes up when you have transparent beliefs. So what is a transparent belief? See, for a fish who lives in the water, water is transparent. He doesn't know it exists. It is there, right? Taken for granted. Like for us, air is there. Yeah. If it is not there, suddenly we realize, oh, air is so important. So these transparent beliefs are beliefs which we hold as the truth, and they're very subtly and insidiously, you know, influencing our life. They're influencing our decisions. They are influencing whether we are going to allow ourselves to be happy or not. That's the sad part of it. Sometimes I tell people, I say, listen, isn't it better to look for reasons to be happy rather than finding out reasons to be unhappy, which you seem to be doing all the time? But why are people seeking out reasons to be unhappy? Where are they coming from? Their belief system. So, you know what? So this world of SQ, when I started seriously working on it, started when I did the Vipassana meditation program, that I actually experienced a few things which is very, very different. It kind of bust apart my belief system. Most important thing that happened was living in a state of higher awareness. Okay. When you start living in a state of higher awareness, then you get away from your reactive mind. See, most of the time we are either reacting or resisting, and all our reacting and resisting comes from the reactive mind. Okay. That can be the basis for another session I can do for all of us, the 3 brain theory that I have. So when we are in that, this rational mind, you know, this all perceiving mind, this possibility seeking mind, this mind which loves change, right? This mind is focused so much on goals and the future, is very rarely being used. So when we start living in a state of higher awareness, then we know, hello, where's my judgment coming from? What is this belief behind it? How do I know that belief is true? And the beautiful thing is that we keep proving to ourselves that this belief is true. We'll find enough evidence in life to find out that the belief is true. Like I gave you the example of maths. If I'm not listening in the maths class, I cannot do that sum, and I will have evidence to see I didn't do it. So Prabdeep, I hope you are awake. Looks like I put you to sleep. All right, so if you guys have kind of got sensitive to this point, and look, it's nothing new. I'm sure you guys know a lot of this stuff already, okay? But I have a little exercise that I want to do with y'all, and I think it's time to do that because I've got the green light already. this is called discovering transparent beliefs exercise. Okay. Would you like to do that? All right. Now, if you want to do that, now there are two ways we can do it. One, we can have a volunteer who's actually dealing with a problem, preferably a persistent problem, a problem which keeps on happening and doesn't seem to change. Okay. And then I'll work with him or her. That's one way. Or I can work with you en masse. I don't even have to have your reaction. You don't have to talk to me unless you want to. So which way? Do we want to take a volunteer for that? Someone who's like really facing something, okay, and he wants to deal with it. So which way is it going to be? If you guys can let me know, put it in the chat box what you want, and the moderator will inform me, and then we'll proceed ahead with the exercise. The exercise should take about 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes longer also, depending on the magnitude of the situation that you are facing. Okay, so how do you want me to do it? So I'm waiting for the moderator to give me some information on this. Okay. See, and by the way, if you are a volunteer, you don't have to tell me what the problem is. Okay. I don't want to know. Because sometimes people are, shy to share in front of 37 odd people.
May I request Mr. Nazir Gajak to be a volunteer? Yes, Nazir?
Yeah, how can you want me to volunteer for what?
Okay, so now Sukhdeepak.
Anybody who has a real problem, right? You don't have to say what the problem is.
Okay.
All right. But you may want to tell me something about the belief if I ask you. Okay, so does anybody want to volunteer for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are no volunteers, it looks like. So it doesn't matter.
So we
okay,
have Nazir who is volunteering.
Who's this?
Nazir from Saudi Arabia.
All right, wonderful. I say, Nazir.
I will share with you my problem.
Well, you don't have to.
But
okay.
Maybe for educational, for everyone, it's okay. I'm not shy.
All right, good. Congratulations, bold guy. You're like me. I can share anything. Good for you. The truth sets you free, you see.
Yes. My problem is I am a procrastinator. Whether it's small problem is always very hard for me to start the step one, the first. So I delay my decision.
Okay. So you can work with that, and I urge everybody else to pick up one problem that is troubling them. Now, this one is a mild one, right? But it's okay. We can work with that also. Everybody pick up something that's troubling them, a situation or a problem, right? And there is a question which you can answer. Okay, 1 second, please. So what belief might one have in order to experience this problem or situation? What belief might one have in order to experience this problem or situation? So you don't have to worry about getting it right. Yeah. So just imagine, Nasir, that we are talking about someone else who's got this problem, and you're going to make a guess and say what belief that someone might have in order to experience this particular problem. And while the other people can look at their own problem and answer this question for themselves, what belief might someone have in order to experience this situation or problem? So Nasir, would you like to say something?
Yes. when I want to start any project, let's say I want to have a new business, to do new business, I always have the belief that there is failure. I'm gonna fail in it because there are past experiences I failed so many times.
I got it. So the belief, all right, I got it. Fantastic. So how do you prove this belief to be true?
Okay. Everybody is thinking on their problem. In
Yep.
my case, because I'm looking at the past experiences. So my belief is continuously, every time I say, oh, I will.
So what happened in the past? You failed. Is that what happened?
Yes, I failed.
So that is proof to you that you know what you believe is true.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So let's ask you another question. What other belief might one have that you're experiencing this problem or situation?
Might others.
Yeah.
People,
Any other belief that one might have that is experiencing this problem or situation? Yeah, just say anything that comes into your mind. Others can write down what, yes?
What other people, what you mean, what other people believe?
No, what other belief you may have. One belief you said I might fail, right? Is there another belief that you may have?
Okay, it is the people who are surrounding me are not giving me, encouragement. They are putting me down.
Okay, so how do you prove this belief to be true?
From the interaction.
They are actually discouraging you.
Yeah, my wife may say, oh, you have done that, it failed, so don't do it. Maybe my close friend say, oh, it's very difficult for you because you don't have the skills, something like this, discouraging.
Yeah, so that's what they are doing, right? What belief would you have that people are discouraging you?
Okay, I see their, communication with me, which is correct. They are interacting with me and not lying because they have seen things.
Yeah, so what belief you may be having that you have people who are discouraging you?
Oh, the people that are discouraging me.
Yeah, what belief do you have because of which you always get people who are discouraging you?
Yeah, I trust in their judgment, so I'm consulting with them.
Okay, I'll ask you the same question one more time. What belief would you have that people judge you in this fashion?
I'm blank now.
Yeah, make a guess, no? Like if there was somebody else, like your friend, and people are always discouraging him, what belief he may be having that he has people who discourage him?
Okay. Could be that they think they know it all. They are smart. They think they know and I don't know.
Exactly. So that's so. And how do you prove this belief to be true?
Okay.
That they know and I don't know.
Because I see some of them are successful in what they are doing. So it's an evidence that they are successful in one aspect. So I say maybe they are right.
So, okay. So what other belief you may be having about yourself that makes you believe with such things when they tell you? What other belief might you have?
Another thing is, well, now it's getting difficult because I'm trying to be in their shoes.
No. What belief would you have?
Oh, myself.
My belief that you believe them when they say negative things about you.
Okay.
Because you believe it, isn't it?
Yes. It's my belief that they are trying to help me by showing me what I shouldn't do or I should do.
Okay. Now think some more. What other belief you may be having about yourself that you believe them?
Okay.
Because somebody can come and tell you that, you know, your face is black. Will you believe them?
Yes. Sometimes we don't have to believe everything people tell you because.
Yeah. So what is the belief? What is the belief you have that you believe them?
Okay. I trust people because this is maybe one of my mistakes. You always
That
trust
is
others.
okay. So unfortunately, I'm being given the red signal now. And with your permission, we'll be cutting into the question and answer time. So I'll take another 5 minutes. See, Nazir, keep looking. What other beliefs that you may have? See, I can see. I mean, I can make it short. There is a belief you have about yourself also, no?
Yes, yes.
So when somebody else tells you the same thing, you believe it.
Yes, because I put myself sometimes, I think of myself, have the short end of the stick. So I believe I'm not lucky.
Yeah, so that's another one you have. I'm not lucky.
Yes.
Right?
I'm not lucky.
You might have other beliefs also. Right? I know this guy, when I worked with him for 1 hour, he finally came out with this, you know, I believe actually I'm not a good businessman. Yeah. So you keep working on it, like these 2 questions, yes. And eventually you'll find. Now, as you are talking to me, you already noticed that some sort of freedom or opening is opening up, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
All right. So good. Thank you very much, Nasir, for working with me. And on behalf of everybody else who's there on this program, they would have also got some insights by observing you in action. All right. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, let me say my intention was to make people realize, you know, the impact or the influence that our beliefs have on our life. Okay. And what can become possible when you start questioning these beliefs. Because see, there is a cycle where we have a belief and then we will have some evidence to prove that the belief is true. Like in my case, I had a belief I can never learn maths. And I had an evidence that I would never solve a maths problem. That was the evidence, right? So if Nazir has a belief that, you know, I will not be successful in my business, then he will have evidence from the past that he was not successful in business. So what we want to do is work. See, firstly, being aware that how subtly, daily, minute by minute, we are influenced by our transparent beliefs. We don't even think that these are beliefs. So every time you say, I know, oh, he's like that. Hello, that's your belief talking, not you. Every time you judge yourself or somebody else, you know, that's your belief talking. So if you just say, okay, I believe he's like that, you're not so rigid and you're not so righteous about things, right? Other possibilities will start opening up in life. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having listened to me for so long. I hope I meet your standards. You know, if I was in a Toastmasters meeting, I wonder whether you'd pass me or fail me. But anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity. And now the ball is in your court for any questions that you might want to ask me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sukhdeepak ji, for that enlightening session on belief. I'm sure all our attendees would have enjoyed it to the core. May I request all of you to cheer once again for Deepak ji.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I've received few questions, sir. Can we get on with the question answer session?
Yes, yes. I'm always open.
Members who would like to have more questions are free to send it to Q&A moderator, Toastmaster Nalini Mathur. If you haven't sent it earlier, please start sending them. The first question is from the person behind, the brain behind this show. And he's the pillar of our ICC Advanced Toastmasters Club, DTM Farid sir himself. Okay. His question is, as a parent, we expect our children to follow the path we choose for them. Is it correct?
I would choose to disagree with it, because I believe that our children come with their destiny and they come with their vision for their life. I believe that our children are not meant to fulfill our vision for their life. And that's how I brought up my 3 children. I say, hello, it's your life. You choose your vision. I can help them to find it, right? But I cannot impose it, because it's their life and their vision for their life which they need to fulfill. So that's what I believe. But it's my belief. I hope it answers your question, sir.
It does. Now, I would just like to take the liberty, with permission from everybody. You said that you had a problem that as a child, that you felt that your father didn't love you. And it took you quite a long number of years to overcome that understanding. How do parents react when they feel that their son or daughter is drifting away from them?
Oh yeah, so I should have a PhD in that. I've got 3 grown-up sons, you know. And I do sometimes feel that the elder 2 have drifted away. Okay? But then what am I expecting? I mean, they are married, they've got their children, and they are obviously going to give more time to them. And the way the life is going, who's got the time for us? I mean, so if I'm going to expect that they are calling me up every day and saying, hi, Dad, how are you? Or even once in a week. I mean, it's my expectation, right? So there is love. There is no doubt about it. I mean, now I know for a fact. But it is my expectation and my judgment. Maybe they are not drifting away from us. Maybe they are not showing us the signs and symptoms we are looking for, you know, to tell us that they are close to us. So, I mean, they are happy doing what they are doing. I would be happy with that. I hope I'm able to answer that question, Farid. Okay. Yes, and the thought will come. I mean, I'll be wrong if I say, I mean, I'll be a liar if I say don't come.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for asking.
The next question is from our guest from Canada, Mr. Akbar Sheikh. He's asking, do you think before a child goes to a school that a school should have training for parents on psychology of parent-child relationships, husband-wife relationships, psychology, some other day?
I believe that they should have. And I know one school where one of my grandchildren goes to that school, where they actually work a lot with the parents. Okay. It's amazing the kind of work they're doing with the parents. And what the parents are told that they are allowed to do and what they are not allowed to do, because that allows the child to flower, do you understand? Rather than being, you know, pumped up with, you know, beliefs that we picked up. Because the way it has been is that my father treated me the way his father treated him. And I would have treated my children also the way my father treated me. Thank God I didn't. But if there is a formal training and people are doing it, and I agree that we should have it. Good question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from DTM Malini Sani, our veteran Toastmaster, one of our favorite members of our club. She's asking, sometimes adolescent children strongly get influenced by certain relatives and develop a strong aversion against their own parents. No amount of pampering helps to change this attitude. How could his belief system be changed as the belief is seen to seen to his effect daily, even at the work front?
Oh, the question to ask ourselves as parents is that how is it that somebody else is able to influence them and I'm not? And the answer will always be that I've been, by and large, I've seen parents who are always telling too much to the child. You understand? To the extent he feels suffocated, he doesn't want to be in your presence because you might lecture him. All right? And I know certain very good parents, all in good faith, they want to provide everything to the child. They're actually smothering them. You understand? So when they go to a relative who's not smothering them, where they feel some self-determination, some freedom, they tend to listen to them more than they listen to you. Because somehow with your great love and affection, you are making him feel suffocated, or you're making him feel that he has no self-determinism. Do you understand what is self-determinism? See, very few of us have experienced this self-determination in our own lives. You understand? We've always been surrounded by people telling us what we should do and coming up to their expectation. Unfortunately, that is not the world which we live in anymore. So when somebody gives them some relief, then they go and listen to those people. We feel bad. So my child is not listening to me and he's getting influenced by this other relative. And we then blame the relative and say he's spoiling my child. Maybe not spoiling, but we think, no, they've taken my child away from me. I hope that answers your question. Give them love. Give them affection. Give them attention. That's all they want. But we have to tell them, no, do this, this is not correct, this is not correct. Why are you sitting like this? Why are you standing like this? Are you not concerned about your future? See, one thing I want to say to all parents, you tell me, who should be more concerned about their future, the child or you?
Child.
It is the child's future, Baba. He's more concerned about his future than you are. Why add your anxiety to it? Okay.
If I may, Sukhdeep ji.
Sukhdeepak.
Sorry, Sukhdeepak ji, right. And I've been in the teaching line all my life. And this problem had come up. And in this case, it was the mother happened to be a single mother. And what happens is, we have wonderful relatives who love, they're more interested in your life than their own. As a result of it, what happens is that this girl gets so carried away by the aunts and the uncles and grandparents that the mother has to work double, do the work of both the father and the mother. So naturally, she spends quality time with her daughter, but probably not, and gives him as much as she can. But what happens is, from the age of 4 or 5, when they have been abandoned by the father, this girl wallows in that self-pity. And we have wonderful people who can actually add a lot of spice to it and encourage the child to think that the mother is not doing enough. So when she came to me, it was such a tricky position. How do we explain to the child that what the mother is doing is for her own good? Not she's not, out partying or meeting friends or anything. The whole time she's just concentrating on making money to educate that child, give her the best of education, etc. And now the girl is around in her late 20s, and that attitude still has not that animosity to the mother. It's such a pity that this lady has lived all her life for the girl, but the girl still feels hatred towards the mother.
Yeah. And what is the belief that got planted in her mind early? We don't know. No?
The girl's mind?
Yeah, in the girl's mind.
Yeah. Your mother doesn't care for you.
Yeah. And see, the thing is, the only thing we can do for a child like that, I get people who bring their children to me sometimes for counseling and such.
Yeah, I do counseling myself. That's why I'm
right. And usually succeed by doing one thing. Right? See, these people, look, I'm sorry to say, our educational system and everything doesn't teach people to think for themselves. They don't use their own brains. Correct? So if we can, so there are, you must be knowing enough methods where, a person can reason things out for themselves. Right? So little more logic, little more attention to facts. And by and large, they're able to see it. But one thing I found, the children resent anyone trying to control their lives. So, these helicopter moms, they come across to the child, like look at it from the child's point of view. The child feels suffocated. The child and the mother she may not say it to you, gets a sense that I'm losing control. So, when you start associating control with love, see, love is an energy. You can keep giving it whether you can control someone or not. Right? Believe me, there's nothing more a child craves for than the love of her parent or parents. Okay? They may not, so when they become teenagers, they don't take they feel very uncomfortable when you try to hug them and stuff like that. Right? But there are ways of beaming, energy to the child that they can feel your love. What happens with parents who especially have given up everything to take care of a child, that what shall I say, disappointment that the child is now going away from me makes them withdraw that love. So they should be giving more of it.
In this case, what I found was that I thought the mother was overdoing it for the girl. She had that consciousness that the husband is not with her, so the child should not be deprived. And what I noticed over the years of my association with them was she was overdoing it. And I told her that overdoing it does not help, because then the child takes you for granted.
Oh, believe me, I am working with this lady from Dubai who's a very accomplished woman, and she's got a son like that, and she's been doing everything. Now, she wasn't able to give him time when he was, very little, okay, because she was busy making a career. But she has done everything. I mean, she will send him to classes, she will give him exposure to this and that and everything. And now this boy is a teenager, right? He just keeps fighting with his mother, putting her down, abusing her literally. And she is crying and saying, what have I done wrong? And she just doesn't get it. I keep telling her, okay, listen, stop smothering him. Don't do things for him unless he asks for it.
Exactly. That's what I felt. When you give them too much, then they start taking it for granted. That, of course, you're supposed to do that for me. That's it.
You're doing it. No, you're doing it for yourself, not for me.
Exactly.
तुमको खुशी होती है. You feel happy doing it. I never asked for it,
Very true.
They'll even crib about that. You don't give me any free time. You don't let me breathe. You're smothering me. These are words that are used.
That's true. I know. I've heard this from the child. Oh, she's doing it because she wants a name, that she's brought me up alone and I'm an achiever. So my achievement is not for myself, but for her to get a name.
Exactly.
And I just couldn't do anything but just smile. I said, what concoctions are you cooking up in your mind? She's doing it so that tomorrow, if she's not there, you are strong and sturdy and able to stand on your own feet. But children...
Yeah, but I would say to the mother, listen, mother, you've done your job.
Now leave him alone.
Yeah, you've done your job, right? Why are you expecting? What are you expecting?
Exactly.
The expectation may or may not be fulfilled, right? But we've done our job, right?
Correct.
So if I can look back in my life, I'll say I've brought up 3 children. They can stand on their own feet. They know how to take care of themselves. I've done my job. But if I keep expecting, oh, Papa, how are you? This and that, come and stay with us. When my late wife died, I just, locked up my house, moved out from there, I got married again at the age of 60. I said, I'll live a new life. Simple. Let them lead their life. I am living my life.
Correct.
That's it. Because and I'm happy and they're happy. The moment we start expecting, oh, I have done so much, so they should do something for me, well, they will, or they maybe not. I mean, it's up to them, right?
Correct. Yeah, I suppose after a certain age, we've got to leave them to make their own decisions in life.
Yeah, they're adults. They've got their own children. Let them do what they want.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, for sharing this. And my salute to you, fellow. I mean, I know.
Oh, yes, they're very amusing. These children nowadays can be very amusing. There was another businessman whose child I was counseling, and she says, so what if my father does everything? Nobody asked him to give birth to me.
I've heard this one.
That's his duty.
No, I've heard this one. That fellow said, कि अपने मौज के लिए हमको पैदा किया. So why should I be grateful to them?
I didn't want to say that. That's exactly what he said.
I mean, these are words. I've heard people saying it.
Yeah. This is also this happened in Dubai when I was counseling this boy. And I was shocked to silence for a few minutes before
I mean, can you imagine a child saying like that? I mean, it's amazing. They say what they say, influenced by the movies, I suppose.
I suppose so. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome. Thank you for asking.
Thanks for that detailed discussion on that particular subject. We had a couple of questions on the same topic. I hope that would have answered them as well. Moving on to our next question. Deepakji, this person, he doesn't want to disclose his name. The question goes like this. I want to get rid of a habit of looking at the price of the food in the menus in the hotels. I just want to order the food and take it. How to get rid of this belief? He believes he has developed it because of the system he has been raised in the childhood, that being, of a middle class person.
Yeah, I know. I've heard this one. This one meal that you're ordering, we can eat food in the house for 1 month out of it. These kind of things you hear. Yeah, so what belief might one have that you have to look at the menu, that you don't have enough money? I mean, so you have a meal costing you 5,000 rupees, you'll become poor, right? So my friend, if there is some belief that you have, just notice that there is a belief and stop doing it, no? Have a ball, one day just go and order food without looking at the menu and enjoy it. And find out what happens after that, nothing. You'll be so happy. I know, by the way, these questions that I was asking, you can work with yourself with these questions. You'll find out what the belief is. And one person shared with me that when I was a young boy, right, maybe 5 or 6 years old, my father had given me my pocket money, right, which was what, 5 rupees or something. I went and ate a samosa for 2 rupees. And I came and my father asked me, where have you been? He said, I went and ate a samosa for 2 rupees. I got a thappad. Do you know the value of money? You've eaten samosa for 2 rupees. You get it? I mean, we are planting the scarcity mentality that I don't have enough. A lot of people keep money in the bank, So this is a wonderful thing I heard long time back. And I want to share it with you. Work hard and save your money so that when you are old, you can buy the things which only young people will enjoy. Should I repeat that? Work hard and save your money so that when you are old, you can buy all the things which only young people can enjoy. Okay.
The next question is from our volunteer from Saudi Arabia. He wants to know, the wheel you have shared is of NLP concept, and whether it's a process or is it an NLP concept or process or methodology?
Look, I mean, I have studied so many methodologies, but it's a fact that if you have a belief, you will have a judgment. And when you have a judgment, you will do something or not do something depending on that judgment. And then you will get a result, which will usually prove your belief to be right. So I don't think anybody has got a monopoly on that wheel. They teach it in many methodologies. The important thing is to understand that this is what is happening to us. Yeah, it's happening to us all the time. We're doing it. That's the important thing to know. So if you know it from NLP, very nice. Yeah. So if you know it from TLP or PLP or KLP, how does it matter? The truth is, this is what we are doing. All right, my friend. I hope it answers your question.
Here we have some couple of appreciations for your presentation, sir. One from Venkat sir of our club. He's saying, thank you so much for the session. What touches me in your courage of conviction to be brutally frank with your experiences and also ready to share it. You have encouraged us to bring that outward, looking to shine light, looking forward to introspect, plus to be part of this session.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Our earlier presenter, Ms. Moti Masbani, also thanks you and says, great talk and presentation, Sudeeparji. Wishing you and everyone Happy New Year. That's her wish. Then we have...
Thank you.
Our Akbar Sheikh, again our guest, has a series of questions. It goes like this. Here, or Whitney Houston, 5 tips of parenting, which is the greatest love to all. Believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead their way. Show them all the beauty of the process inside. Give them the sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how it used to be. So he has added on to your contributions, sir, and he has thanked you.
Thank you, thank you. And if you're so fond of listening to songs, there's a song by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Teach Your Children. You might want to listen to that one also. In fact, when I attended that training program, I was so turned on, and I actually printed out all the words to the song and I distributed to 300 people in my class, you know. So it's a wonderful song. You can listen to that one also. Teach Your Children by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. It's from their album called Deja Vu.
That almost brings us to the end of the question answer session. And if any more questions, still we have time, 1 or 2 from our participants, we can take it up.
Can I take a minute, Mangai?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much, Deepakji. I consider this as one of the gifts of this COVID, where we as Toastmasters have always been outward looking. We have events like this which make us look inward. And your session has been truly inspiring and very introspective. And if you can take away a few pointers that you have given us, it will go a long way in our lives. Thank you very much. I greatly valued.
Thank you, sir. But no G, sir.
Okay.
We don't need to call each other G, no? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
As we have time, may I be permitted to ask personal questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Being nowadays the super enthusiastic parents, we do get that a lot of anxiety in parenting. How to control that? Are there any specific tools for the parents to follow up and calm down our anxiety in pampering our children? what should we have to do as parents? Since there are
first thing is, you know, you are a wonderful, magnificent, extraordinary human being. All right. And it's your child. So why you have to worry about your child? They cannot go wrong. You are there, no? It is, you know, I am afraid of the anxiety of parents because it transfers to the child, right? A child who's like, you know, having a ball in life, you know, suddenly parents' anxiety transferred onto them. And this is the only childhood they have, for God's sake, Mangai. Let them live it. You turned out all right, no? So why would your child go wrong? I mean, there is no reason, no? There's no logic to it.
Thank you. Thank
you. No tools are required.
I see Toastmaster Shanti has raised her hand. Shanti, you have any questions to be asked? Shanti, are you there?
Mangai ma'am, it is Toastmaster Shiny, not Shanti who's...
Oh, Shiny is there. Okay. Shiny is one of my students also. Hi, Shiny. How are you?
Yes, sir. I'm fine. Today, what happened? My mobile got stuck. So I had to use another mobile. So camera is not working. Actually, it was an interesting session. I just wanted to say hi, but my camera is not working now. I was trying to start my camera. So thank you very much.
You must be standing in the park with your husband.
No, yes, I'm outside. Thank you very much for this valuable session.
Thank you. And I think I owe it to you and your husband that I got introduced to Mr. Farid. And today I'm having this opportunity to talk to all of you. So thank you, Kabir, and thank you, Shiny. Otherwise, I would have not got an opportunity like this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. So are we ready to say goodbye or something like that?
No, sir. You can have your final comments before we hand it over to the president for the closure of the sessions. And we have.
I mean, you know, what should I say? I just tell people this, and I'm saying it to you once again, even though it might sound repetitive. Like, you guys are really wonderful, magnificent, extraordinary human beings. And you are a bunch of real influencers. Okay. And sometimes we are conscious of how many lives that we influence. Sometimes we are not. Okay. I believe that each one of you would be able to influence at least 4,000 or 5,000 people in your life. Okay. And if you just align with one thought that, you know, we'd like to make this world a world that works for everybody with nobody and nothing left out. You get it? This world belongs to everybody and we can make it a better place, and people like you will make it happen. So I'm proud to have been a part of your session today, and I'm going to follow Mr. Farid's recommendation, become a part of the Toastmasters in Mumbai. I should have done that in 2007 when I was invited. I didn't, but I'll probably do it now. I'm already a member of the Rotary Club, so I don't know if anyway, I'll talk to you on that separately. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that enlightening, entertaining session, sir. I'm sure all of our guests thoroughly enjoyed it. We extend our sincere gratitude for taking your time and staying with us for so long and make it a truly memorable session. I'm sure all would agree with me. We had the basic lesson that we need to have belief in ourselves from you today, sir. I'm sure this will transform our lives in the upcoming days. And I, once again, I extend a sincere gratitude to you for being
here. Thank you so much.
you be with us in our upcoming sessions also. Since it's being the online sessions, we are most welcome to be part of our families. With that, let me hand it over back to the President.
Let's give a round of applause to our convener. Mangai, you did a marvelous job this evening. Great job. Ta-da! The results are out. Sukhdeep, you have passed with flying colors. What a wonderful session. It was quite a revelation. You know, I have two lovely daughters. One is 10 and one is 2.5-year-old. Believe me, you have shifted the furniture in my head today. Lot of new things that I've learned in terms of belief. And I'm sure many of the parents who have experienced this feel the same. I could echo what Venkat Mangai mentioned during the thanks. It was marvelous. Now, challenge to all the members present here. I want a volunteer who could tell us about the belief wheel which Sukhdeep spoke about. Anyone? What does it start with? Hello? The belief wheel. It started with belief. Yes, I can see the
procrastination.
Close. Yes, Nalini.
Beliefs, judgments will result in actions we choose to act or not act, and that results in results which fortifies our beliefs or shatters them. That's the belief wheel. I hope I'm right.
You have double thumbs up. Great job, Nalini. So we had lovely session. We are so grateful to you, Sukhdeep. You know, Sukhdeepak, I know I remind you of your father with my mustache. You know, you put me on a higher pedestal. A question to you. Are you still good in maths?
No. I don't have to use it, you see. I made sure I don't have to use it in my life. But what I realized is that I can pick it up. I mean, I'm very clear. I mean, I don't have a problem understanding it anymore.
You know, you are a living example. So what you talk, you preach. You know, this is amazing. I'm sure your journey has been wonderful. And we would like to catch up with you after this session more in detail. I know you are in India and it's late night there. We are so grateful for this wonderful session. I would like to thank our volunteer, Mr. Gentleman, Mr. Nazir. Thanks for taking part. You've been so brave. Thank you all. Special thanks to Shiny and Kabir for the help you have offered. You've been wonderful. And I'm so grateful to Farid Saab in conducting this wonderful session. As we experienced that this session happens once a month. But today, having 38 attendees, I felt sick to my stomach that we could all do more. We could invite our friends, relatives, all the Toastmasters that we know. You can feel, right, how many of our members are missing out on this wonderful session. That really feels, you know, I feel sick to my stomach. So much of effort has been put by Farid Saab, you know, in making sure that this segment is so successful. Please encourage members to attend. It's all for your benefit. So with this, I would like to mention that our next meeting is going to be on 23rd January. So please, am I right, Mangai?
No, it is 16th.
16th, my bad. Thanks for the correction. 16th January. So I encourage all of you to attend. And please send your nomination for the area contest. Farid Saab, anything from your side before I adjourn the meeting?
No, please adjourn. And then we'll talk.
Yeah, with this, I adjourn meeting number 127. Stay safe, stay connected.
Thank you.
Now we can stop the recording.
Yes.